Hope everybody's doing okay today. We have Carrie and Dave on with us. Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good, Cordell. Thanks.
Carrie, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Good, good, good. So we're not doing an investigation this time, guys. What we thought we'd do is talk about um, what is it really like being a paranormal investigator? What does that really mean? What are some of the good and the bad and the ugly about that? A lot of the stuff that happens you don't really see on YouTube or TV and stuff, and it's interesting because there's usually two or three different different reasons why people get into this. A lot of them get into it because they've had all these experiences, some as young as when they were a kid, and etc. So maybe we ought to kind of go around the room and maybe have Dave and then Carrie, why you guys became paranormal investigators, or why you got into it, I should say. So we'll start with Dave first. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, had a. I was about 4 or 5 years old. We're playing football in a school field, about five of us, and we all saw a big figure with a black top hat and cloak came looking down on us. And from then, you kind of get interested. I used to stay at my granny's a lot, and I found one of my uncle's books, Uncle Bob. I found one of his books on ghosts, ghosts of the Lake Counties, I think it was called. And I just read that back to front continuously, and for some reason, just decided that I wanted to see all those places and see all those things that were in the book. So I started investigating at about 13. So never, and continued to this date.
Wow. Okay, Carrie, I know you have a, a similar story starting when you were a small child. Go ahead.
Yeah, since I was ever since I could remember, I could see things or hear things that others couldn't. And I just thought everybody else could. So when I talked to people about it, it would kind of freak them out, scared a lot of people. Thank God for my mom. She was my rock, but it's just something that was normal to me. And like Dave, my parents with me and all that encouraged me to read books. We'd go places, and I was always just trying to find and answer these unknown questions and that. So it's just something that's always been.
Yeah, and for me, guys, similar story. And it started when I was a kid, but as what really put me in this was in this house here back in the early 90s. There was weird stuff, doors were slamming, footsteps, and it happened for about a year in here. And then one day it just went away, and that's when I started really getting more and more involved. But I'm like you guys, I had stuff happen when I was a kid too, but when you're a kid, you just kind of I don't know how I really related to it, but what I would like to talk about also is so here we are, we're in this paranormal. What does that really mean? What does investigating and being a paranormal investigator, and it's not all a bed of roses, right, guys? I mean, there's some bad things that happen. There's some emotional um, toll that is taken with our experiences sometimes. And I this spawned this whole topic kind of got spawned because we were watching some YouTube videos, and there was these, and it's always these 20-year-olds. They're and they have a paranormal group, and they're just going in very little equipment, and they spend half the time showing their own face. They you don't even, I mean, they're not, to me, they're not even really investigating. So what, Dave, Carrie, which I don't know which one of you want to go first, but when we go out and investigate, it can get really intense. It's not about the individual, it's about the overall data collection and what we experience overall, and trying to find answers. It doesn't seem like they're trying to find answers, they're just trying to find experiences. That's my impression. And it's not about that, is it? I'll let Carrie go first.
There's a really bad feedback of you're talking, whoever's talking.
Yeah,
Repeating, and I can't understand a word. It's being
it's Dave's. We're bleeding through on Dave's. That's why I'm muting Dave now and then.
yeah, I can't hear anything that's being said.
So you go first, Carrie.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I couldn't hear.
Oh, well, what I said, Dave, do you have any headphones at all? Do you have any earbuds? Because we're getting it is feeding back.
Okay.
So Dave will go do that. We'll talk. And yeah, there is a feedback on Dave.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry. I just couldn't hear anything.
So this topic stemmed from, and I'll just go over it really quick, is that all these YouTube videos and all these people out there, it seems to be about the experience, not the long term or what really paranormal investigating is about. And it's a little frustrating to watch because it just seems to be about the moment, about the experience, and not really finding answers. And it seems to be about the individual, at least on YouTube, right? I mean, that's what it seems like. So that's what spawned this topic. And so wanted to discuss, what does it really mean to be a paranormal investigator? And Carrie, go ahead. To you, what does this mean?
Trying to find answers, taking talks and discussions and things you've learned, and bringing science and psychology and all this stuff into this field, and trying to debunk things. There's just not one specific answer for it. There's several, and the more you get into it, the more you develop, and it just goes on. But there's no, if you're talking about video.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, Dave still has his speakers on, I think. Dave, do you have your speakers on?
Yeah, just trying to knock them off. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Carrie.
So it's a whole combination of things. It's a learning process. I think with every investigation you do, you learn something new, or you have the probability of learning something new, whether it's a new technique of investigating, new equipment, or learning from somebody else how to debunk something. So
let's go back to So do you hear? We're still, yeah, Dave's speakers are still on.
Yeah, just I'll try to work through this, mate.
Okay. I'm just speaking to see if I can, yeah. So Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm hearing it too. Um, we always have technical difficulties, right? While we're waiting for that, Carrie. So what's your main goal in paranormal investigating, Carrie? What are you wanting to get out of this?
Um,
Oh,
I
Dave
don't think I'll ever have a solid answer, but just trying to find out what goes on or why. I just, I don't think we just end, but as to why or where or how it happens and just, I think there's always a zillion questions off of one question that might vary day to day. So,
um the other part of this is equipment versus oh, equipment versus your own physical. Dave's back in. He's coming in now. All right, there's Dave. And guys, for those that are watching this, Dave's in Scotland and Carrie's in outside of Ogden, Utah, and I'm in Sandy, Utah. So we actually have an international group here. uh, anyway, so do you still hear any feedback, Carrie? I do a little bit.
not like what I was.
Yeah, it's better now, Dave. Can you hear?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah, you're crystal clear.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so well, that sounds a lot better. I think we're okay. So Carrie was, so there's multiple aspects of this. It's what does it mean to be a paranormal investigator? What do we actually do? What are the negatives? And for me, the negatives, I've had very emotional experiences, and one of them was extremely fantastic and good, where I connected with somebody, this female, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. But I think I got lucky. There's been others that, well, I think I mean, is that what I mean by that is I think, well, I did have a date with her though. Carrie set me up with a date with her. I had to bring her. I actually brought her roses and everything. It was quite an experience, and I connected with this um, female. And yeah, this does sound strange, doesn't it? I had a date with a dead woman. Uh, I she didn't stand me up, Dave. So that would have been worse. But no, that's the point though, is that are 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 we in this? Are you in this for the thrill, or are you in this to actually find answers? And also this whole concept of equipment, right here is an audio recorder. It's still probably the best piece of equipment we have right here. And you have one. Is that what you're reaching for, Dave?
No, sorry.
Oh, I thought you were going to pull out an audio recorder too. Like, aha, mine's bigger than yours. Yeah, there you go.
25 quid. Cheap and nasty, but ideal.
So,
Mine do.
okay, geez.
Oh, so we're doing that hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
No. Okay, stop. So there's the other aspect, because I think you can be over inundated with equipment, and equipment has to serve a purpose. Also, how you investigate, and you have to have some formula to investigate, and what's the purpose. So I'm going to go back to Dave here this time, since we got Dave back. What's your thoughts on all that?
On equipment.
Well, what I want to hear is your thoughts on the good and the bad experiences, good experiences, your body versus all the equipment we use. Can you use too much equipment? What's the purpose of equipment? And about actually taking a location on and having a plan, not just going in there to do selfies and broadcast on YouTube and that crap. So anyway, oh wait a minute,
Yeah,
we're broadcasting on YouTube. Never mind, I didn't say crap. So go ahead.
yeah, cool. But it's taken with 40 years to get here, I suppose. No, we okay. So some of the positives and negatives. I mean, it's got to be. We have to be interested, or we have to have a passion for this. Otherwise, we still wouldn't be doing it. And I think that passion comes from wanting to understand what this phenomenon is. We've seen a lot of things, we've heard a lot of things. We have felt some things, and it's what the heck is this? I think it downs. I mean, when you look at the sheer quantity of data that we gather, I think the kind of the disappointing thing is that we haven't got the time to effectively go through it within a sensible time frame. We have got backlogs. If you think of, if we've each got 10 audio recording full time, we've got a kind of a DVR set up with camera. We've got handheld cameras. I mean, we must have hundreds of hours of data to either visually look at or audio. Listen. I think listening's a lot easier, because you can do other things while listening to it. But video, you've got to watch it and keep watching it.
Well,
And it is very difficult when yep.
so do you think you can have too much equipment?
No. I personally no, because I think when I first started, I used to have like the old tape recorders but it was really the instrumentation we had was mainly just to check the environment, what's happening in the environment. We used to trace kind of power supplies. We used to just really understand where the power sources were in each room, and use your kind of sight, sound, or use hearing, use sight, just use your senses with some basic audio and video measurement equipment. I know it's gone crazy with these kind of ovuluses and all this kind of stuff, which I've never used, thankfully. But so I think that the downside is, for everything you see on TV, you see 30 minutes of action, it's probably weeks and weeks of filming, because you've got to be patient. You've got to be very, very patient in this kind of, I'm not going to say a profession, but in this hobby or this interest, because it can be quite time consuming, especially when you're reviewing audio. So you've got to have a love for it. If you're wanting to come in for a quick scare, like you see on TV, then this is not that, I think.
Carrie, your thoughts on it. Very good, Dave. Let's hear your thoughts on this, Carrie.
On equipment?
On all that, can you have too much equipment? How much does your body and your own physical presence affect it? Why? About this whole thought too on YouTube and everything else, it's just these guys going in, these people going in, and they spend more time videoing their face than they do the surroundings. I don't call it an investigation. So all your thoughts on all that. Can you have too much equipment, for example?
Well, first of all, I think our minds and our bodies are our best equipment. Problem, though, is you can't share that with anybody. There's no way that you can 100% say this is what I heard or felt and all that. But I do believe the mind and the body. But equipment wise, if you don't know how to use the equipment and don't use it properly, then yeah, you've got too much. Start basic. I think everybody runs out and they buy all these cool looking things that have lights and talk and all that, and there's really no reason for them to do that. It serves no purpose, as we've seen some. They're made up and they're selling for $5,000 or something like that. And so yeah, I think you can have too much equipment if you don't know how to use it. I think it would be better to have fewer pieces, understand them and how they work, start that way. I do agree, obelisks and all that. I don't have one, don't believe in it. So I mean, how many times have we seen some new equipment come out and it's got coils all over it and lights and it does all this stuff, but 90% of what you're seeing has nothing to do with even being able to detect anything paranormal. It's just visual for people to see and get excited about. Seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as you're talking, Carrie, I'm showing a picture of one of our setups, and there's a lot.
Yeah,
What?
I was just saying, so for me, just get the basic equipment, learn how to use it. I don't know how many times I've seen people do audio EVP sessions, and this is how it starts: EVP session 1. I mean, to me, they're not even doing that right.
So here's my next question to you guys, though, is, and I'll start with Dave. So, Dave, what do you want out of this?
Yeah, actually, just something just on the last point there, which Carrie was mentioning. You kind of tailor your equipment to suit. So, depending upon the investigation, I mean, I've seen us go into huge properties, trying to cover as much as we can, and then you start zooming in and start narrowing down over the weeks when you kind of record in certain areas and things. But I've also seen us with just handhelds, external. You've got, some different instrumentation and that. But you can. I think you can. I agree with Carrie. You can't have too much equipment if you don't know how to use it. But from that, can you repeat the question?
No, yeah, sorry.
It's been a long day. Sorry.
Well, no, Dave, it's the distance from Scotland to Utah in the U.S. That's it's a long ways for everything to flow. Well, one thing I want to say on equipment, this is my take on it. The equipment should have a purpose, and there should be a reason why you're using a piece of equipment. One, it should be testing a piece of equipment to see if it actually is any good or valid. Carrie mentioned that, because there's a lot of junk out there. And if you find something that appears to work, well, keep using it. I mean, it's really simple, right, guys? If you find, it's like this right here, we know this works. We use it every single time. Even if we don't use any other piece of equipment, we use this because we know 100% it works. And I think that's the key with equipment. You can have tons of equipment, but if half of it you're not even sure if it works, you're not. And here's the other issue, guys: half the people that use this equipment don't even understand how it works.
Yeah.
They just go out and buy it. They've seen it on TV. Like, oh, this will help me capture a ghost. So the original question, Dave,
Yeah.
if I can remember it, I am.
No, I've got it, but I was
My
just
hat. Well, my hat might be on too tight. So
yes.
I
go ahead,
just
Chris.
Go ahead, Gary.
done. I just add just real quick when I was talking about the audio when they say EVP session 1, you know, even doing that, you've got to learn how to do these EVP sessions. You need to state, like we always do, uh, time, date, location, who's there, are you carrying it, are you setting it down, what direction, all this input that goes in that gives you your baseline. And then as you're going through everything you hear or think you feel, you want to mark the time, what you thought was said or whatever. All this stuff, it's a learning process that you got to do, I think, in order to do an EVP session to the best of one's ability. It drives me nuts when I see EVP session 1. Oh, did you hear that? And there might be a bang, but that's it. In my mind, I'm like, okay, where was it? What time was it? Who was there? And so I think not only learning how to use the equipment and understanding that piece of equipment, but also learn how to implement it into an investigation.
Yeah, Carrie, you're right. I think we apply a lot of fixed audio. We put a lot of audio in the field, and then we carry. I haven't seen too much of that. I don't watch too many shows, but I haven't seen too much of that. It's more handheld.
And they're facing their faces.
Yeah.
And then something gets thrown, and they're like, oh, did you hear that? Or see that? Well, I don't want to see your face. I want to see what's out there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the thing is to films one's face and their reactions during what was last night alarm time. That's the new thing, alarm time.
Right.
It's where you go in for 45 minutes by yourself.
It must be American then, because the British wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And videotape your face for alarm time.
I got to say one thing on Dave's
It's a
comment.
challenge.
Wow, what's that?
The British do it, but theirs is 3 minutes long because they're really quick. So, okay, anyway. So back to the original question. And I do have to say, though, that Carrie's comment, this whole thing is an extension of selfies, right? The paranormal investigators on YouTube and everything, they're just showing their face most of the time. Then they turn the camera around when they say they saw something. Well, it does no good for the audience. It goes no good for their capturing anything. But back to the original question. Hold on. So Dave, so here was the question before we got further down the road of equipment.
Sorry, Cordell. I still don't think we've finished equipment, though, right? Because just one final point, just for the audience or whoever views this or whatever, it's and Carrie mentioned this, right? Buy a piece of equipment and get familiar with it, get used to it, understand how to use it before, because a lot of people go out and buy packs. They buy a case. Companies sell cases with all these gadgets in. I would recommend you get an audio recorder, get a video, and just becomes very proficient and familiar with that. Understand what you want to get from it, and then invest in the next piece of equipment rather than going out and buying a full case full of gadgets you don't know how to use. That's my view.
Yeah, you're not judged on how good of an investigator you are by how much equipment you have.
And no, and I agree with all that, and it's part of what I said, that you have to know how the equipment works. You got to know what its purpose is. You have to know a piece of equipment actually does work, not just how it works, but how,
Yeah.
if it even does work. And like Carrie said 15 minutes ago, that people buy these things, because it's got a bunch of flashing lights and it says ghost detector on it. It's and they pay $40 for this thing that just beeps and squeals and flashes lights. Anyway, well, equipment isn't done, guys. We can talk about equipment. That's what this show will, because it's all integrated into one topic. So here was the question, Dave.
Yeah.
So to Dave first, then to Carrie, what do you want out of this?
So from when I started back in the very early 80s, I had a fascination on this subject, and I just wanted to understand what this phenomenon was. I've had some really interesting encounters, sightings, or kind of not so much of a visual sighting, but like kind of doors trying to get opened and things like that. But nobody was there. I really want to understand what this phenomenon is. When I started, I thought it was a kind of like a stone tape theory where things were recorded and replayed. Now, I've got a different view as to what this phenomenon is. And I think it is absolutely something to do with time or frequency, in terms of. So I would love to just understand what it is. That's what's held me fascinated by this hobby for years and years.
Okay. Carrie, to you, what do you want out of this?
I guess for me, it's just kind of an understanding why, as a kid, I would know things, and I mean, literally be able to go tell people things about people who've passed on and all this other information. And I guess for me, it was always trying to find out that this is a normal thing, that people can do this, how it happens. And it just has grown. It's just still, for me, I could turn and say, I'm not doing this anymore, but for me, it wouldn't stop. So if something's not going to stop, then why not try to do your best to understand as much of it as you can? Do I think we'll have the exact answers? No, I don't. But so
No, and I want to kind of agree with both of you. I mean, it's fascinating. It can be thrilling. It can be troubling at times, but at the end of the day, when you wake up the next day, it's like you're pretty much ready to do it again.
Yeah.
And so to get more into what it really means to do paranormal investigating and to be a paranormal investigator, I guess what part of what I'm troubled with, guys, is what I see on YouTube and some of the other stuff, and even on some of the TV shows, that it's really just about that quick fix, the quick scare, the quick shadow, and everybody freaks out. And it's not really about the nuts and bolts and trying to understand what's actually occurring and what are we really dealing with and all the intricacies of that. Like Dave, you touched on it. Like, are they generated, is this being generated by some types of frequencies? Even you can go off on all kinds of little topics like time shifts and everything else, what is occurring. and Carrie and Dave, one of the things that's, are we revisiting ourselves in some quantum physics way that we don't understand? So there's all these little things that we go down, and it's interesting because a lot of the shows I don't think actually touch it. It's just about that, filling that 30 minutes in the viewership. But I, I so here's the next thing I kind of wanted to mention, and I'm going to start with Carrie this time first. I'm playing musical squares here. Um, what does history play in it for you, as far as being a paranormal investigator?
Well, if you don't know history or know the history, then there's really no sense in investigating, as in wanting to know knowledge. Because if you don't know history or as much as you can about a location, and you go, say you capture a voice or something, okay, well, then it's just a voice. If something happens, by knowing history, you can try to tie into what historical event or what took place at that time. So you need history in order to investigate if you're wanting to come out with more of an understanding and actual information. Um, Anybody can run in and say, "Oh, I caught a voice. It's Sam." Great. But if you know the history, Sam might have been a prison guard who, so yeah, history research is extremely important.
K Dave, the same question to you. What role does history play for you in this, in paranormal
It,
investigation?
yeah. I mean, I've always had uh, a kind of a love of history as well. The UK is fairly rich in that. But I think from a investigation perspective, I normally kind of try to follow up with history after the event, not so much prior. Otherwise, just to prevent, you don't know how much your mind plays into this, just so to make sure that it doesn't, things aren't preemptive and what have you. But I will. I mean, someone I was going to mention, Cordell Carey, I still get fascinated, like whenever you hear a very clear EVP, and the EVP doesn't have to be directed at you, So I kind of get back to that female who kind of said, "I love you too, my papa." You kind of feel a bit like a voyeur in a way, but then you think, well, you could be the only person in the world who has eavesdropped on this conversation, and that's what fascinates me. It's this may never have been heard since it was spoken, and therefore, how the heck can you hear it now? I mean, what is it? With time, is time really linear? It can't be. It must be it must be concurrent, because it's just fascinating. Like and listening to audio and watching video, you never get bored because you're still waiting expectantly for something to happen or something to occur. Which really kind of validates what you think this phenomenon is. So I think history does play a part in this. Having the research piece, it does help you with understanding names, individuals, areas, and locations. Certain areas within a property. But me personally, I don't put too much in that because I just want to try to go in with a more of a kind of a neutral view as to what the phenomenon could be. And follow afterwards with the history piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I never want to know.
Yeah.
I never want to know what the reports are, when we go and they want to tell about things, I'm never there. I don't want to know. For myself, I don't want to know. But afterwards, like we do have Janie and everybody, where once you go through and stuff, that yeah, the history is important, and to document things that happened and all that. But I agree with you, Dave. When I first go in and that, I don't want to know anything. I'm always the one that leaves and someone else stays and takes
Yeah,
the
and
information.
for me, history is vital. It's vital to understanding the building, the land, the area, and I think it's critical, and it's part of the story. And but I'm the opposite of Carrie. I want to know exactly everything that's occurring, because I'll concentrate on those areas. If they always hear footsteps coming down the stairs at 2, I want to concentrate equipment on that stairs and want to know exactly. And that's okay. And there's not a right or wrong when it comes to that. The one thing I do want to mention to Dave, to what part of what you said. So yeah, maybe the past, present, the future is all happening concurrently, simultaneously, which is hurts my head to think about, but um, it could be. So I want to get. I have 2 more questions that I really want to get in about being a paranormal investigator, because it's not all selfies and 20-minute clips on YouTube. There's 2 areas that, I mean, some of this is the hard part to talk about. One is the really negative stuff, the stuff that affects individuals, and sometimes not just for hours, but it can be days and weeks or forever. And we've all seen it happen. We've had it happen to ourselves. Um, you know, and the other question is then also the good. And then I have one more question. So I want you to think about these 3 questions: all the negative, and then the positive, the great experiences you've had. And one of mine, the first one on my list, I'll let you guys know right now, is just the people I meet, the friendships I've created, the team members that I've gotten to love over the years. And that's the number one positive. But so think about the negative, and I'm gonna, again, we'll take turns here, and the positive, and then the other aspect that is touchy, um and oops, we lost Dave. Dave just disappeared. Oh my heck, we were getting into the nuts and bolts and Dave left. um Hopefully Dave will show. Oh, here he comes back in. Let's see. Oh, there's Dave. You okay, Dave?
Hey, you see, that was paranormal.
Reality,
So
reality shifted.
So the last topic, and I don't want you guys to speak on this, and you don't have to speak on it, because it's one of the most common questions we get, or I get. I shouldn't say we, I should just say me. Inevitably, I always get asked this question, and that is, do we bring stuff home with us? Or I'll get that person, they'll either ask, well, aren't you worried about bringing stuff home? And so I talk to them about it. Or they'll ask me, it is your home active also? And because they link the 2 together, and it's a touchy subject, because we're talking families and everything. And I want you guys to know that only say whatever you're feel free to say, but it is a real subject. It actually, we have to deal with at some level. Some of us do. And we'll save that for last. But so, um, Dave, you first on maybe, and I don't know how to go about this other than maybe explain one of the most negative experiences you've had investigating, and then we'll let Carrie give the negative, but then we'll give a good one, a good experience, because like I said, this is a mixed bag, guys. Investigating, all this stuff happens. It's real. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not sure about negative as such. I mean, you know, I love investigating, whether it's good or bad, whether it's rain, hail, or snow. I think in terms of, I mean, in terms of like negativity. I mean, I've seen people really be impacted by it. Kind of colleagues who you investigate with, and therefore you do kind of feel for them. Some people do, for whatever reason, kind of do. I've had a colleague of mine who we investigated for some time just stopped. He saw something and that was it. So I think from a negative perspective, it's mainly what I see that it can do to colleagues or other team members who just aren't prepared, or who have a pretty negative event occurring. Not so much myself. I've never really had that kind of negativity. That negative. The boxes are moving around here, Cordell. I'm getting dizzy. So I think from a negative perspective, I mean, there's been twice when I've investigated. Once when I've investigated, and once when I wasn't investigating, but it was in a haunted house, or a house which was active, we'll say, where I did think, what if I go up them stairs, I'm not coming back down. So, but no, I think negativity, Cordell, or a negative aspect of investigating, I think it's purely the impact and effect I've seen on colleagues who do some panic, some run, some don't come back. Is Cordell falling asleep?
I don't know if he fell out. Usually, he's got.
Let's talk about.
Here. Unless he's talking to somebody and he's got himself hidden, but I don't know if he's.
Well, yeah,
looking the host yet.
But I think Carrie from
oh,
is he in? Is he or? Let's have a look.
He's visiting a room.
I suppose the little boy's room is apt for him, huh?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can see that on
visiting
YouTube.
The little boy's room.
Yeah, so I think from it's mainly what I see it doing to people who aren't prepared, or who take it to heart or whatever.
I have to absolutely agree with you. When I see someone go through something that scares them, it breaks your heart, and you want to say it's okay and that. But if they've really experienced something, you can't take that away from. And it's hard to watch someone break down and cry, or just the fear that kills me. As personally for me, everything that I go through or experience, I don't think any of it's negative. It's normal. It's just normal for me. So I don't see it or feel it as negative for myself. Because it's just for me, a lot of what goes on's happened since I was so little that it's just how it is. But watching others go through it, that's really hard. Or when they come to you wanting answers, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, that's a fair point, right? Because I mean, how many people have come forward because for us to investigate their properties and that, because you know they are concerned, they're worried, they're frightened, because they don't understand it. Some of the properties we investigated had a big impact on the family because they just didn't understand. And I think from from that side of it, then it's probably the impact on the public, which is the most kind of concerning, because it can be pretty bad. I mean, some people can't sleep. I mean, it does impact people in different ways. Yeah.
and then for me, the other thing is people will approach me all the time using that psychic stuff, and then expect that I can give answers.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. And that's really, really hard, because you see these people who are wanting an understanding. I think a lot of times you just want to know they're not crazy or that they're safe. And that's the
Yeah.
hardest part. But personally, yeah, nothing. I
Yeah.
would say
And
positive. I love it all.
what I'll say on it is it's the part of investigating that is takes an emotional toll on you. And I know, you know, this is the other problem I have with these some of these YouTube paranormal investigators, that it's something that is very serious. It happens when you have a person shaking violently and crying, and all you're trying to do is get them out of the building, and help them, but you don't really, inside, you don't know how to help them, and all you know to do is to get them out of the building and talk
Yeah.
to them and try to get them calmed down. What isn't seen is the impact it has emotionally on people. And it's not just the person going through it, it's the person that experiences it with them and sees them go through it. And I've been there. I've lost sections of time. Which is really disturbing. Um, and I have found myself in one location that we'll maybe do on this broadcast at some point, where I was not in control of myself anymore. I couldn't think. I couldn't even hardly walk straight. I have no idea why it happened. And it's really, guys, it's really just disconcerting when you lose control um, at that extent. And it's really bothersome, and it stays with you. This stuff stays with you. It doesn't leave. And it's part that people don't really talk about. That's why I get and I have some pet peeves I won't go into, but no, and there is a dark side to all this, and it's it leaves emotional scarring to some extent, I think, and it's really, it doesn't happen all the time and everything, but it's something that has to be taken seriously. And
Corel,
go ahead.
sorry, Corel. One of the investigations we were at, when we recorded the whatever the kind of the voice of that girl kind of dying, that was, she was kind of asking for help, and you could feel the pain in her voice. So, kind of past tragedies or whatever time this is, sometimes some of the recordings you get are pretty graphic and are pretty soulful,
Yes. Yes.
And I think that does kind of play on you as well, because I remember we listened to that and it was like, oh man, we've got to help, but there's no way we can help,
Yeah, and guys, that's also something to talk about too, is this concept of helping. And it's strictly, the helping is strictly based on religious precepts, in my opinion anyway, that well, you just need to push them towards this light, you need to have a blessing, you need to do this, that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that work. And I'm fine with trying anything, guys, I really am. But this whole concept that somehow all they need to be told is you can go, you can leave, and maybe it is that simple, but I haven't seen it work. But before we get off on that topic, so Carrie and Dave, do you have an experience that is good, is like this, I wish this could happen over and over, that was so fantastic, or maybe the emotional feeling was so overwhelmingly positive and a good feeling on an investigation? um do you have one? And I'll start with Dave. Do you have any one time that was like, man, that was just fantastic, I wish I could experience that again? And or maybe emotionally it was. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. I think anytime you see something, and whether that kind of, some of the things we've seen together, that kind of half a woman walking across a balcony, or seeing cowboys or seeing whatever, you always kind of want to see that again, because your brain doesn't seem to act fast enough to understand it till it's gone, your brain tries to catch up. But I think one of them was at one of the investigations in Wyoming, at a location we've investigated over like 100 times, probably 100, maybe even 200 times by now. But and that was when I was at base camp and everyone else had left, and I saw on the 3 camera monitors different things happening, which was like kind of, this is it. Finally, being able to record this elusive thing. On one of the cameras, kind of, it looked like ectoplasm was falling from the ceiling. It looked like it was raining inside the building. On another one, there was a kind of a light which moved and then moved into one of the rooms, and the room lit up. And then on another camera, there was something ran past it, about the size of it. It was like a child's head, with a camera. And I thought we'd actually recorded it. That's it. Three separate cameras tied up to a DVR. We've got it. So I think at that time, I was absolutely ecstatic, because it was a step towards understanding what this is. If you've recorded it, so you can actually watch it, analyze it, and what have you. However, as you know, that's never the case, and it's very rare to record this kind of activity at all on video. When we went back and reviewed the data, each of those clips was black within the DVR from 3 separate cameras, as if something had intelligently recorded over it, which, but I think initially when I saw it happening and saw it unfolding, I thought, this is it. This is great. But
so you were up here.
yeah. Oh, it was great.
After me and you reviewed it, I'm like, where is it, David? You're like, you're all
Hey, honestly, I just thought, if whatever this is has the intelligence to do that, then why do we bother?
Okay. Well, since I was there, I can relate to that one. Carrie was there too, and Yeah, I remember that one distinctly, and that was interesting. We did capture just a little segment of the
I
rain, just
know.
like 1 second of this material raining down. Okay, Carrie, what's the most and I hate to use this term, but just to emphasize it, I'll go ahead and use this, but kind of joyous that emotionally this was just so like um on the good side, overwhelming, like I wish I could just stay there and enjoy that every minute. Go ahead, Carrie.
For me, that's going to be hard because this has been something I've done. I always do. I don't talk much about it, but yeah, I mean,
No, I get it.
it's always for me. It's always good and stuff. And when get you see someone and you get a message and you tell somebody and you know nothing about it and it's spot on and they're like, just without going too much, it's just always been something that since I was little, the things that I do or that are I mean, it's common.
Yes.
It's just common.
So if I could sum it
The
up,
way
Carrie, for you is that so basically the whole act of doing this is that then is the
if I wasn't in investigating, this would still go on.
right.
So
No, that makes sense, and that's a good answer. Because it's different for all of us, and I won't go into mine too much. I'll just give the highlights, a summary, and it was at a location in Ogden, and it was the joyous, most wonderful experience I ever had. And it was I connected with a female, and she interacted with me physically, and what I mean by that is multiple ways. So I'll give you two things how she interacted.
she did
What?
the same. She did the same to me and to
Um,
another.
she she blew across my hand, and it was ice cold. It was some of the coldest, and it was just isolated in this little strip, and I could feel the air move, and it was frozen. And I asked her, "Can you blow across my cheek?" And about 3 seconds later, this breath came across my cheek, and it was ice cold. And every time she did it, it was like I was emotionally part of her. And I asked her 9 times in a row, and she blew across my face 9 times in a row. Then I asked her, I held out my hand and I said, "Can you put your fingernails into the palm of my hand?" And all of a sudden I felt this static and tingling sensation, and I felt pressure. Didn't hurt or anything. I just felt pressure. And and when it ended, there was 3 little marks in the palm of my hand, which to me looked like fingernail marks. And but each time she touched me and each time I experienced her, it was like I could feel her emotions, and they were so intense, but they were complete happiness. I mean, it was just it, there was no it's the most emotionally happy that I've ever felt in my life, and I know that sounds weird. So there's my little story, and I've longed for that experience ever since, and I've never had it happen again. And it was quite fun, and I'll never forget it, and it meant a lot to me. And it's one of the things that I keep every new location. I hope I run into somebody like that, but haven't. So le- I we kind of touched on it. I'd like your guys' concept of because as paranormal investigators, so here we are, we go, we set out equipment, we capture stuff, we do all this stuff. We might spend a day there, 8 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever. We might have stuff happen, we might not. So let's talk about that concept. So, of, oh, these are lost souls, and you just got to guide them, and you can help them leave. And I've never understood this concept, and so we'll let I'm going to let each one of you talk about this for a minute, because to me it's always a very confusing concept. Like, there's almost like this arrogance to me, and this is just my concept, guys, and if people are mad at me about this, that's fine. But there's almost like this arrogance when I hear people talk that way, like somehow we know what to do with these people and where to send them and what they actually need. It's almost like talking down to a 5-year-old child, right? It's like, oh yeah, I know what to do. And it's usually based on the person's belief or religious concepts, that, oh, send them to the light, oh, it's a demon, oh, it's this, they're lost, they don't know they're dead, they, et cetera, et cetera, and somehow we can magically help them move on, which I still don't know what that means, move on. I really don't, guys. So I'd like you to so who wants to go first on this strange topic here? Carrie, Dave?
Okay.
Okay, Dave, okay, then we'll go to Carrie. Dave, what
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, after, oh crikey, was it 38 years or something of investigating? We still don't know anything. So for someone to have the arrogance to presume they know, and to presume that they have the power to do whatever they do, is just beyond me, Cordell. It's whether they want to use sage or they want to do all these dances around the rooms or whatever they do. It's just not me. It's just not me. I don't understand it. I don't even presume I don't even want to understand it. It is arrogance, and yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what else to say on the subject. Really, that's just not for me. It works for some, but it doesn't work for me, and it certainly doesn't support anything we've identified, recorded, seen, witnessed in our years of doing this.
Okay, Dave, that was pretty direct to the point, and yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm glad you are direct to the point. I mean, I think I was pretty direct to the point. Because I could sum it up that I have no idea, and I've not seen any of these things work, but I'm taking Carrie's time. So, Carrie, what's your thoughts on this?
With everything that I've seen or done or somehow know or whatever, I've never once ever thought about trying to send them somewhere or send them away. Because in my mind, I'm like, what makes you think that's what they want? Just because there might be someone hanging around, maybe they're just doing their normal thing. They enjoyed what they do. Just the concept of sending them to the light or whatever, I've never even thought of that. That's never crossed my mind. Why? If I'm hanging around somewhere and let's say you start noticing things and you pick up an EVP and I'm telling you, hey, you're going to tell me then that I've got to leave or whatever when I'm there having fun. So no, we don't do that. I've never done it, and nor will I ever do
No,
it.
I think it's an interesting thing that, because Carrie, you said something that triggered this thought in me because it's absolutely true, and that is, it's funny that, so let's take a scenario, guys. A family calls, they believe they have a haunting, a paranormal investigation team goes there, they capture 10 EVPs or whatever. And because they captured the EVPs and say, yes, your house is active, now the next procedure is to get them out of the house, which in that whole concept, that just seems really weird. Again, there's this arrogance to it that, oh, you do exist and you are in this house, so we're going to now get rid of you. And even if you could, well, that's
Sorry.
Dave. Dave was watching himself, guys.
Just
No, but so this whole concept that, again, it's kind of this arrogance thing where we're saying, oh, we know what's best, they have to leave. So let's say, guys, let's say that spirits and everything is real and everything we do is 100% real and they are the dead. Why would our next step be to get rid of them? I don't get that. I really don't.
Especially if they're laughing and all this other stuff. Yeah. And
now obviously, guys, there's different degrees here. So if we took like the concept of a poltergeist, a noisy spirit, um, let's say that it's just a spirit, somebody of the dead that is throwing things around. They're very physical and they're doing all this. What should we do at that point? So you're at a residence, and so Carrie first, and then we're gonna change it up a little bit. We'll go Carrie first, and then Dave. So Carrie goes to this house, and there's doors slamming, plates are being broken. The family's terrified. What do you do, Carrie?
And just tell them it's their house. Just talk to them like you would anybody. My house. You want to stay here? Follow my rules. Don't assume that just because a door slams or things that it's something bad. It could just be, hey, we want your attention, to just like a 2-year-old, But a poltergeist is, or you just live with it. Like I've had the last week 4 objects thrown at my husband and me, and it just is.
Okay. Dave, what would you do under the same scenario? Dave goes to a house. Well, no, you're in Scotland. Let's make it a castle. Dave gets called to this big castle. There's an angry, dead 600-year-old knight running around, breaking things and throwing things around. What does
That
Dave
means
do?
you're the one that's being the noisy one.
Well, it's perception, right? Perception. So, Dave, as a paranormal investigator, what do you do?
Yeah, so the first thing I do, is we don't know what this phenomenon is, and therefore we don't make any false promises. What I would do is I would start to measure data, try to gather as much data as possible, to try to understand what is occurring in the environment and what could be occurring during the alleged activity. That's all we can do. All we can do is record and gather data, and then review that to see if there's anything to correlate from it. And then you kind of decide the next step and the next step and the next step.
Just tell them not to pay attention to the TV shows and that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think big thing is just stay calm, and just because.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the religious beliefs, as Coyle's already mentioned. It it does depend on hugely on a belief system, I suppose. But from an investigator like we are, the way I would tackle it is, obviously trying to calm and allay the fears of the individuals, but we have to gather data. And then from that, you can look at trends. You could look at, is something happening in the environment external? It could be completely logical. Is the house under power lines? You know, I mean, just simple things like that.
Could be living person.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Cole, I mean, how many times have we been to an investigation where one of the children is trying to get attention, you know, or there's something else happening in that family environment, and which leads some of the children to do whatever they're doing. You know, yeah, I think once you rule out the human aspect of it, then it is just data, isn't it? And we just have to record the data. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we actually went into a property where one of the kind of the children was kind of making this activity occur, we'll say. So yeah, it's that's what I would do.
yeah.
Be data driven.
Yeah, well, see, this is okay, and I want to touch on one thing Carrie said, because she said something that was very interesting and actually possibly very, very true, and that is, to an entity, a spirit or whatever, the us living might be the noisy ones. And so, and we never look at it from the perspective of what we call, yeah, an entity or spirit. Because in my view, it, it's an interesting thing that somehow, and again, I'll just state it again. There's this arrogance that somehow, that we can just go in, like we're like literally like the paranormal police, right? we're, you're in violation. We're gonna kick you out of this house. It seems so, in my view, it looks and seems so ridiculous. So this raises the next question, guys, is because after we talked about this, especially this last topic, um, we can kind of wrap all this up into what is a paranormal investigator. Are we a fix it person that goes in and again, there's an arrogance tied to the term fix it, like something is broken and we rush in and fix it, which I don't understand. But if you think about it, that's really what a lot of people are talking about. Oh, you have a problem, call us, we'll come in and fix it. Like something's broken, something's wrong, and that's the problem I have with it. So what is the role of a paranormal investigator in each of your individual, not in the pulse, our team's concept, but to you personally, what should be the role of a paranormal investigator? And I'll start with Dave first this time, and then we'll go to Carrie.
I think Coriel, from my perspective, is so I'm the kind of technical director for Pulse, right? So for me, I want to measure and record. I want to understand what's happening in the environment, whether it's anything from temperature, pressure. Anyone who says that ghosts gives off EMF, I'm not sure where that came from, but I can guarantee in 38 years, yeah, I've never encountered that. But for me, it's just understanding what is occurring in the environment, and to do that, you need data, and whether it is video, audio, but you just need to gather as much as you can. You need to measure, and then you need to correlate and see if you can establish trends or understand what is occurring. I mean, I think that's probably where I'm coming from. I don't know, kind of the team is built up from different strengths, which is why it's a great team. But what I bring to the team is purely that side of it, in terms of that kind of data driven understanding of what's occurring.
Okay. Carrie, so in your view, with everything we just talked about, what should the role of a paranormal investigator be?
Well, for me, it's I'm kind of on the other end. Dave's role is extremely important. I go that role too, but I need Dave's role to kind of back up mine. For me, I don't like talking about it, but I am more of the see it, feel it, hear it type person. You know, um, and that I can go in and be like, yeah, we'll just say it's here and I'm hearing this or something like that. And just kind of when you capture what you're saying, you hear or what's happening, and it kind of leads to where maybe you should put equipment in that. Yeah, I mean, the scientific route, absolutely, but there's that other part of me that I have no off switch. It's going to happen no matter what, and it's just learning to balance. And uh, for me, no matter what I go through on one end, it's never used as evidence. I would never ever use it as evidence. So, but I mean, and I know Cordelia and Dave, you know what I'm talking about. I have no off switch to certain things, and but uh it's just I don't know. There's just a lot that goes to it. Just scientific aspects of it, historical aspects of it, and then just personal and
Okay.
everything. It's a trick
Um,
question.
and so here's my take, and it's for me, the only way I can answer that question is I would have to list all the stuff we don't know. It's not for me, it's not what we know, it's what we don't know, because that's a bigger list than what we know. And and I think that for me would kind of is how I would answer it.
Or why?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all
Why?
the
For me, it's why. Or people ask me why. Why do I get this? Or why, which is an unknown.
yeah, and so for me, yeah, paranormal investigator, I find myself always going over what I don't know. I never rarely go to a location uh thinking in my head all the stuff I do know, because every one I go to just emphasizes how much I don't know. And this concept, and again, it goes back to the word I've used many times since we started this broadcast here, is at least the last few minutes, is there's I'm really bothered by the arrogance of some of the paranormal groups and investigators out there that just matter of factly, like you hinted at it, Dave, you about EMF, that they'll go down the whole list of this is fact, this is what happened. They oh, your battery died. Oh yeah, it's a spirit. They take they drain the battery. Um, I'd like to
Yeah,
see the data on that. Just because
but
the battery dies. Go ahead, Carrie.
you do go in with what you know. We all do, because after time we know that we're hearing voices from this room, so we're set things up in there. We know we've caught uh, this light shooting across or this door opening. So, and then in ways you do know some stuff as into where you might have to start putting equipment in
Well,
that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
100%
yeah.
knowledge, but we kind of know, hey, this is a hot spot. Let's stick stuff there.
You
But
know,
we don't.
Kerry, that's interesting that because after that location in Wyoming, what 150, 160 investigations or whatever over a number of years, we know now, and this has been correlated with data. We know now exactly where activity is. You know, we've recorded a female in this room continuously, a male in this room, you know, and so I think you're right. I think we kind of build up that picture.
Doesn't mean we have the absolute answer, because we don't know why.
Yeah.
But we do have some knowledge that we build up from collecting data and experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and so here's the last thing I'll say on it, and it's funny because when you have an owner go, well, so what's going on, and blah blah blah, and will this help? Will that help? Yeah, most of the time I don't know. You know, and if they're religious, if they say, well, should I have it blessed? My response, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And I don't tell them why I'm saying that. The reality is, do I think it'll help? No. Will it make them feel better? Yes. And that's why
telling them to stand their ground. I just giving them the strength to know it's okay to speak up makes someone feel somewhat stronger.
Well, because the only thing I do know is that they need to do stuff that makes them feel good. Do I think it's going to help? No, my experience is that it's not. We've been in homes that have been blessed multiple times, have had all kinds of stuff. And the reality is, no, they're still there. And the best thing, guys, I've ever seen anybody do, and advice is for the homeowner to talk to them as an adult and tell them, lay down boundaries. And that works about 70% of the time, or helps. Doesn't work, it helps. And it seems to calm things down a little bit. Does it remove them, get rid of them? No. But it makes it livable, more livable than it was in most cases. Not always, though. And we're getting to the end. We got like 3 minutes left. It's been a good show, guys. I've enjoyed the talk. And there's never enough time, right? There's like 200,000 other things to say on this topic. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, so in terms of the question you asked about things following your home, do you want to just leave that till next week?
Yeah, we'll discuss that another time, because maybe that should be kind of a whole different topic. And tonight, I say tonight, it's in the afternoon in where I'm at. But I kind of wanted to, what it meant for you guys to be a paranormal investigator. What does that really mean? What is it? What does that contain? You know, and I think we touched on it, but again, it's like any of these topics, we could probably go on another 20 straight hours on all this and still have a lot left, right, Carrie?
I think it's what it is to me with our team is we all have a little different abilities or different thoughts, but we come together and support each other and work on implementing all these things and gathering the data and marking personal experiences and all that and history, and just kind of comes together. So we all just kind of fit together like puzzle pieces, which makes us pretty well covered. And I think that's why a lot of people do like us, and that is, we don't claim we have the answers, nor will we ever say we have the answers. It's just, you know, and we're willing to learn from each other, and that's something that has to be a continuous thing.
You know, and I think as one thing we probably didn't cover, and I know we've got a couple of minutes left, 1 minute left or whatever. But one of the things I really enjoyed with investigating was the kind of the travel to the location, because, you know, the kind of groups we hang around in or live in, we'll say, you know, aren't always on the same wavelength when it comes to this kind of hobby. And therefore being able to talk, by being able to meet up with like-minded people, to be able to talk, about investigations and the paranormal, and then driving to the location while discussing it, setting up. I mean, really fun memories, because it's a continuous. It's just like kind of being able to spend a lot of time with people who just think like and that is quite rare sometimes.
Hours of talking that seem like minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you just summed up this broadcast because, well, actually, since we can go over a few minutes here, so I did want to say this is our third broadcast on YouTube, as far as a live talk show, and each one's gone by just like that. I mean, it just flies by, and I think that sums up what Carrie and Dave, what you guys both are talking about. It just flies by, and we've all the three of us have always enjoyed talking about this stuff, and it's never ending. It's
There's
never
never a
ending.
stupid question or anything.
Oh, I don't know. I think Dave's had one or two stupid questions. I'm pretty sure you no. Dave, if you had a couple stupid questions, then I definitely have too. So there you go. Uh, but Carrie's right. There is no dumb question. But so, I talked to Carrie, Dave, about this broadcast, and I'm letting everybody know that we're feeling our way through this. We're going to do some, like, the first two broadcasts were zeroed in on two locations, investigations we had. We're going to continue to do that on here, but we're going to intermix it with these type of talk shows where it's just maybe us three. Maybe we'll have a guest. We'll discuss the paranormal, and if people that listen to this, or we build up a viewership, if they have questions, then we'll answer those questions and topics that they want to discuss. And the other thing, guys, I think you'll both agree with me is, one, we don't have all the answers. Two, um, most of it is just our opinion, which is based on our personal experience and our team's experience. We have our individual experiences, and then we have the team experience, and that's what our opinions are based on. And it's not that they're right or wrong; it's just our opinions. Now, I am opinionated, as both and so is Dave, and so is Carrie. That's the one thing all three of us have in common. We're very opinionated. We'll have a show about equipment, and we'll go over some of the most widely used that you see on the broadcasts, and from TV to YouTube, the most common pieces of equipment. And one of the favorites for Dave, Carrie, what is Dave's favorite piece?
Yes, P7.
Yeah, that's his favorite, and we can't pry it out of his hand. If Dave becomes a ghost, Carrie, all we'll hear is the SB7 playing when we can't capture his EVP. Okay, Dave, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but I'm pleased I've never owned one, and I never will.
And for the audience, that's an inside joke, because it's one of Dave's most irritating pieces of equipment known to man, and at the SB7, which is, Dave, it's
The Ovilus, the Puck.
yeah. But the SB7 is one of the most popular and most widely used pieces. And so we'll have an equipment show where we can all voice our own opinion, our own hatred, our own love. I love these. Just a simple $60 recorder right there.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. And I think I'm speaking for Carrie and Dave, both of you. So anyway, this will evolve. And so what I'd like to do, guys, is just let the audience know, next week we'll do an investigation where we'll break down an investigation, play EVPs, video clips, whatever we have. And we'll probably do one or two, and we'll alternate. And then we'll have a talk show like this. But I'll post it, in the schedule. So when I schedule them, you'll know what it is, that it'll be an investigation. So my next question to you guys before we go is, I was thinking about doing roosters next week. It's one we can mention and talk about. We were there, all three of us been there multiple times, and we did capture some really interesting pieces of evidence, video and audio. And all three of us, I think, experienced stuff there. Now, what do you guys think about that? Do you want to do roosters next week?
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I'll schedule it and I'll put that up. And so, what all this talk right now is for the audience as we formulate this broadcast and we settle into our little canal here, how it's going to work out. But I thought this was a great topic. I think it's one we'll have to revisit, and we'll revisit about paranormal investigators taking stuff home. Um, I can say this, I think, guys. Now, would this be a fair statement to both of you? That before you became paranormal investigators, I suspect both of you had things occur at your own homes off and on throughout the years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Dave's thinking because he's been doing this since he was in the womb. So go ahead, Dave.
You know what? I feel like I have. Yeah. When I started, not so much in my home, my parents' home, but kind of relatives' homes where I used to stay and investigate. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to know, because I think it's an interesting concept, because I'm just going to throw this one tidbit out. I don't expect either of you to answer, but there is a concept that all three of us has talked about, that the dead or entities or spirits, whatever label you want to give them, are all around us at all times. And that technically, if you accept that, then technically probably every location is potentially haunted or active in that sense. And I'll just leave it at that, and we'll talk about this concept of bringing stuff home um, on another show. But I want to thank everybody. Please subscribe if you catch this, and I want to thank everybody that's viewed our last weekend's broadcast. It got a lot of views and still is getting views, and so that's really cool, and that helps us. And before we all say goodnight, Dave, any last thoughts on any of this before we say goodnight or good day?
Just it always enjoy doing these, and I think just for the viewers or audience or whatever, it's our opinions based upon the experience we've had over the years. Different countries. It's so yes, we could be opinionated, but it is our view. But please just use this as source material, or for the investigations. You may be going to do an investigation. You put a search in, find something we've reviewed. Just use that. Use that to correlate with what you've identified or found there. It's it is what it is.
And very good. And next is Carrie. But I want to add, this is for posterity too. We don't care if anybody watches this, because the reality is it's in the ether now, out on the internet. It's there forever.
Immortalized.
Yeah, it's there forever. So go ahead, Carrie, your final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about what has happened to us or what works for us, and I think it's constantly changing, and but we work well together. And I think the people who might watch or whatever, we're not banning anybody. If you want to discuss things, we'll discuss things with you, and we'll listen to you. You can listen to us. It's just a way that I think all groups can kind of go and build towards the positive stuff with the paranormal and get rid of all this BS stuff that really, if you ask me, has nothing to do with being a paranormal investigator.
And the last thing I'll say before we say goodnight is, if somebody, I don't care where you see them on, what platform or anything, if they tell you they have all the answers, you probably should turn around and head in the other direction.
Roll your pants up high because it's going to get high and deep in there.
Yeah, and that would be my one advice. Always be skeptical of anybody on any topic, actually, guys.
And don't
My
be afraid
opinion.
to question.
Yeah, my opinion is, if somebody tells you they have all the answers, that's probably a red flag right there. And I'll leave it on that. And I'm going to let our Scottish brethren say goodnight first. And Dave, I want you to know, love you, man. It's been great tonight. Tonight for you, today for me. And don't hang up though. Say goodnight, then Carrie will, and then I will, and we'll all leave together because we're a team.
Holding hands and skipping.
Because we're a team. And I want everybody to pray on the kitten, because the kitten knows all. Okay, so Dave, go
Yeah,
ahead.
hey, good night, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed it or found it informative, or or not. But we will keep doing these. We'll keep kind of telling you our experiences and what we found, and then you could use that if you want to.
Okay, great. Carrie?
Yeah, Dave, love having you here. Miss you. So this helps. I couldn't ask for a better team or two guys to go into these locations with me. Always got my back, and hopefully I have yours. But yeah, don't be afraid to question or ask us things, and that's what we're here for. You may not agree with what we say, and you may agree. So take it as it is, and let's just try to grow from this. I'd like to see down the road the paranormal field just bloom and go further.
Okay, and I want to say goodnight, and please subscribe. And we'll be putting out some more shorter clips far as EVPs and little segments of investigations. And next Sunday, I'll schedule it. It'll be Roosters, and that's in Utah. And I think you'll find some of it very interesting. And I want to thank Carrie and Dave. You guys are fantastic as always. And you're my brother and you're my sister. And really just had a great time. And thank you very much. And thanks to everybody who watches this. I agree with these guys. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree. Again, it's just our experience. That's all we can tell you is what we experience. But we are opinionated, and I'll leave it at that. So, on that note, guys, have a great Sunday. Dave, you have a great Sunday evening. And
Tell them family love them, Dave.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all. We'll see everybody next Sunday. How's that?
Next Sunday.
Same time. We got Dave's technical stuff worked out, so I think we're good to go. The last hour and 10 minutes of this broadcast was perfect. I thought, technically speaking, it went really well. So you're all worked out, Dave. It's all working.
Yeah, all working good.
All right, guys. Have a great Sunday, and good night, everybody.
Night.
Cheers, everybody.
Take
See you.
care.
Bye.